Hi, Steve from Steve M Outdoors, and today I have something a little different. It's a book review. It's a review of Alexander Yuschenko's, poetically entitled, and I'm going to read it because it's quite long, M91 30 Rifles and M38/M44 Carbines in 1941 to 1945, Accessories and Devices, History of Production, Development, and Maintenance. It's quite a handful. And here it is. The M91 30 has long had a poor reputation amongst serious collectors. It's been described as minute of barn door, a better javelin than a rifle thanks to its accompanying bayonet, which was omnipresent during the war, a junk rifle. I think that's a little unfair, given that it's a rifle with a service history that extends back to 1891 in its original guise. And it's still being used on battlefields today. Arguably, it's the rifle that won World War II for the Soviets. And frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, I find it a far more interesting rifle than the SKS-45 that so many gun owners fetishize, particularly in Canada these days. So given that it doesn't have a great reputation, it can be a bit hard to find serious reference works about it. Actually, nearly impossible would probably be a better way to put it. Now, Alexander Yuschenko stepped up to the plate last year in 2016 with this book, which was published in Russian and then translated into English by Ryan Elliott. Now, as the title implies, Yuschenko only covers a few Soviet variants of the Mosin Nagant rifle, and only during the World War II years. Now, if that is of interest to you, boy, are you in a treat, because there is no fat in this book. Every word and picture delivers exactly what the title promises. Now, the problem with collecting or researching Mosin Nagants is that we really don't have a lot of the official data on serial ranges, production runs, reports, variants, trial reports, and that's thanks mostly to the Cold War. And what we do have is largely cobbled together by the collecting community, which can skew the data. Now, Yuschenko employed the actual original Soviet war archives to get the actual facts, at least where they continue to exist. So the book is basically divided into two parts. Part one is chapter by chapter covering each year from 1941 to 1945 in the production of the M91 30, the M38, and the M44 rifles. You get it all, from monthly production numbers, which plants produced them, some of the people responsible, and the incredible numbers which were lost each month during the war. Now, there isn't much that Yuschenko doesn't lay out, including esoteric facts like which factories did stock repairs, how many replacement parts they were expected to produce. Yuschenko also delves slightly in the story of the aborted attempt of the Soviet Union to replace the then aged M91 30, because you have to remember, by 1941 it was a 50-year-old battle rifle, with the SVT-40, before essentially abandoning that idea thanks to cost and complexity, something that I dealt with in an earlier video on the SVT-40. So if this sounds like a book that's dripping with information, it is. A lot of the writing here can be pretty dense with content, but Yuschenko generally does a pretty good job of placing everything into context. You get a sense of how the Soviet Union struggled initially to supply its troops in the early part of the war, the adjustments they made to ramp up production, and the astounding numbers of rifles that were lost during the war or were damaged and needed to be replaced. He also takes a look at some of the experimentation that was in place with the Mosin Nagants themselves, including a carbine that not a lot of people are aware of, and it's covered in this book. The second part of the book looks at what Yuschenko refers to in the title as accessories and devices. And this may be where the book shines for a lot of collectors, because if an accessory was produced for the Mosin Nagant rifles, it's likely in here. outside of the bog standard post-war magazine pouches, cleaning kits, and tools that everyone receives generally when they buy a Mosin Nagant. Yuschenko also has some fantastic pictures of some truly rare bayonet variants, pouches, and tools that few collectors have even seen photographed, let alone have actually seen in person. Now, I think the one thing that will really interest readers is Yuschenko's great work in exploring the world of the arsenal marks that so many collectors have tried to figure out over the years. His collection of those marks is not complete, and we will likely never have a full list of the markings, as some of the records were simply lost or not kept in the exigency of war. But what's here will probably answer most of the questions that collectors have about their rifle.
So here is some of the things that you'll see in this book. As I stated, there's a lot of tables in here. Believe me, if you're looking for information, you've got it. You've got lists of parts that were produced. Great stuff on rare mag pouches, which some of these have never been seen outside of the Soviet Union. Variants of the common Mosin Nagant tool that we're all familiar with. The rare mine sweeper attachment that you could get for the Mosin Nagant at the time, and some other unlucky chaps using them. And over here you've got a full list of arsenal marks, such as Alexander Yuschenko was able to put them together.
Now, if I did have a criticism of the book, it's that some of the writing is rather stilted, and I don't know if it's an accurate translation of the original Russian or it's just an inelegant translation. It's not an easy read. There are paragraphs and paragraphs detailing things like production bayonets and obscure plants that you've probably never even heard of. All numbered, plant 94, plant 74. If you're a weapons geek like me, though, you will appreciate the detail. Casual readers looking for a breezy read will probably just enjoy it a lot less. Now the bad news. Yuschenko only did one run of this book, and it's entirely sold out. Now, I've read some of his posts on gun boards like Canadian Gun Nuts, and it appears that he has no plans of producing another run. So your only chance to pick this up is likely on websites that deal with out-of-print books, which means money. Or maybe you'll be lucky enough to see it at a gun show, where you can generally pick up a lot of interesting books. Either way, though, if you do have an interest in Mosin Nagants, or you're a collector, I do urge you to make the effort to pick this up. So, if you enjoyed this review, please feel free to like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me get the word out about these humble little efforts that I make. You can also find links to my Facebook and Twitter pages below. This is the official below sign. And as always, happy shooting, safe shooting.